Seal Terminal C. No one leaves until Senator Whitfield and the protected federal case are located. The order exploded across the security radios at 7:18 a.m., and the ordinary rhythm of Reagan National Airport stopped almost instantly. Boarding announcements fell silent. Security doors lowered across the concourse. Transportation Security Administration officers redirected confused passengers while Department of Homeland Security personnel entered from opposite ends of the terminal. Coffee cups remained untouched on cafe tables. Rolling suitcases stopped beneath departure screens. Hundreds of travelers turned toward the checkpoint, searching for a danger they could not see. Officer Ryan Mercer stood at the center of it all with a United States Senate identification card in his hand. A few feet away, Senator Angela Whitfield remained beside a gray inspection table, wearing a Navy business suit and a controlled expression that barely concealed her frustration. Her locked document case rested on the floor between them. A small security light on its side blinked red. Ryan looked from the card to the agents moving through the terminal. 15 minutes earlier, he had accused Angela of presenting false credentials. He had dismissed her boarding pass, her driver's license, her Senate travel documents, and the Transportation Security Administration database confirming her identity. He had called her calm questions disruptive. He had prevented her from answering repeated calls from the United States Capitol Police. Now Homeland Security was closing an entire terminal because he had moved a protected federal case after being warned not to touch it. Ryan turned toward Transportation Security Administration Supervisor Miguel Alvarez. "Why are they shutting everything down?" Miguel stared at him in disbelief. "Because the secure case triggered an emergency alert, and the senator assigned to it was reported missing from the approved travel route." Ryan looked at Angela. "You should have explained that sooner." Angela's eyes hardened. "I gave you every document required to verify it." Officer Jenna Cole stood several feet behind Ryan, her body camera still recording. She had watched the license match, the ticket match, the Senate card match. She had suggested calling the official verification number, but Ryan had refused. Now she spoke quietly. "Ryan," she did explain, "you decided not to believe her." A radio crackled near the checkpoint. "Capitol Police Protective Detail entering Terminal C. Preserve all camera footage and body camera recordings." Ryan's grip tightened around the Senate card. The terminal cameras watched from the ceiling. His body camera had captured every changing explanation. The document case had recorded the exact second he removed it from the approved screening zone. Procedure had given him several chances to correct himself. Pride had rejected every one. Angela looked toward the lowered security doors, then back at Ryan. "You believed security procedure gave you permission to ignore facts," she said. "Now that same procedure is documenting what you did." At 6:58 a.m., only 20 minutes earlier, Angela had entered the terminal believing she would clear security in 10 minutes and board a quiet flight to Boston. She had no visible entourage, no cameras following her, and no reason to think a routine screening would become a federal shutdown. She carried one suitcase, one protected case, and the expectation that correct documents would be treated as correct no matter who presented them. At 6:58 a.m., Senator Angela Whitfield stepped out of a black government sedan beneath the departure canopy at Reagan National Airport and adjusted the strap of her leather shoulder bag. The morning air carried the sharp chill of early spring, and the terminal windows reflected pale sunlight over the Potomac River. She wore a tailored navy suit, low black heels, and a silver watch that had belonged to her mother. In one hand, she carried a compact rolling suitcase. In the other, she held a reinforced federal document case secured with an electronic seal. The case contained briefing materials for a closed meeting in Boston concerning vulnerabilities in the nation's transportation infrastructure. Because the meeting involved sensitive information, Angela had been instructed to travel quietly. No public schedule, no press, no visible security detail at her side. A Capitol Police protection team monitored her route from a distance, close enough to respond, but far enough to avoid attracting attention. Angela entered Terminal C and joined the early morning stream of travelers moving toward security. Business people balanced coffee and telephones. Parents guided sleepy children past departure boards. Flight crews walked with practiced urgency. No one recognized the senator from Maryland standing in line among them, and Angela preferred it that way. She had spent enough years in public office to value the rare moments when she could move through the country as an ordinary citizen. At 7 a.m., she sent a message to her chief of staff. At security, boarding should be on time. The response arrived almost immediately. Travel office confirms all credentials. Protective detail tracking. Angela placed the telephone inside her bag and moved forward. When she reached the screening station, Transportation Security Administration Supervisor Miguel Alvarez noticed the federal seal on the document case. He checked the travel notation attached to her boarding pass and gave a small nod. "Good morning, ma'am. This case may generate a secondary alert because of the security device. We will verify the seal before moving it." "Understood," Angela said. Her tone was polite and unhurried. She placed her shoes, handbag, and suitcase into separate trays, then kept one hand near the document case as instructed. The screening equipment hummed. Trays moved beneath the scanner. For several seconds, everything remained routine. Then a yellow warning icon appeared on Miguel's monitor. It was not a weapons alert. It was a secure device signal generated by the case's electronic tracking system. Miguel leaned toward the screen. "That is consistent with a protected federal container," he said to the officer beside him. Before he could begin the verification procedure, Ryan Mercer approached from the airport police station near the checkpoint. He had noticed the delay from across the concourse and interpreted it before anyone explained it. His eyes moved from the locked case to Angela, then to the special notation on her documents. "What is the problem?" he asked. Miguel answered, "Probably none. The case has an active federal security seal. I am confirming it through the authorized channel." Ryan looked at Angela. "Is that case yours?" "Yes," she replied. "And it should remain within the marked screening area until verification is complete." Ryan heard the instruction and mistook it for a challenge. "I did not ask what should happen. I asked whether it belongs to you." Angela held his gaze. "Yes, officer. It belongs to my office, and I am responsible for it." Ryan examined her boarding pass without permission, then looked at the locked case again. The ticket was valid. The name matched. The travel notation was clear. But instead of allowing Miguel to verify the seal, Ryan stepped closer and said, "Open it." The terminal continued moving around them, unaware that a routine security alert had just become something else. Angela's expression remained calm. "That case cannot be opened at a public checkpoint. Verify the federal seal first." Ryan's face tightened. He had been given the correct procedure. He decided her confidence was suspicious. At 7:02 a.m., the scanner issued a second warning tone, and Officer Ryan Mercer reached for the reinforced document case before Transportation Security Administration Supervisor Miguel Alvarez could stop him. "Leave it inside the marked area," Miguel said. "The seal has to be verified before the case is moved." Ryan ignored the instruction and pulled the case several inches toward himself. Senator Angela Whitfield watched the small green security light turn amber. "Officer, return it to the screening zone," she said. "Moving it without authorization may trigger an alert." Ryan looked at her with open suspicion. "You seem very familiar with how this works." "I am responsible for the case." "That is what you keep saying." Angela opened her shoulder bag slowly and removed her driver's license, United States Senate identification, boarding pass, and official travel authorization. She placed each item on the inspection table in a straight line. "You can verify every document through the number printed on the travel order." Officer Jenna Cole arrived beside Ryan and activated her body camera. She examined the credentials without touching them. The photograph matched Angela. The name matched the boarding pass. The travel authorization carried an official Senate security code. "Ryan, the information appears consistent," Jenna said. "We should call the verification office." Ryan picked up the Senate identification and studied it, as though accuracy itself made it more suspicious. False credentials are designed to appear consistent. Angela's expression tightened slightly. "Then use the official number and confirm them. Do not tell me how to conduct an airport investigation." Miguel stepped closer. "She is describing the required procedure for a protected federal container." Ryan glanced toward him. "I am handling the law enforcement side. And I am responsible for checkpoint security," Miguel replied. The case should not be moved again. Around them, the line began to slow. Travelers leaned sideways to see what had caused the delay. An older white passenger named Eleanor Price stood near the end of the inspection area, watching Ryan hold Angela's identification while ignoring the verification number printed directly beneath his thumb. Angela remained still. She had been questioned in committee hearings, challenged during campaigns, and confronted by people who believed composure was proof of arrogance. She recognized the pattern. Ryan was no longer examining the documents. He was defending the conclusion he had formed when he first saw her beside the secure case. "Where did you get this identification?" he asked. "It was issued by the United States Senate." "Who gave you the case?" "The Senate Security Office." "Why are you traveling without visible protection?" "My security arrangements are not relevant to whether the credentials are valid." Ryan looked at Jenna. "She is avoiding direct answers." Jenna frowned. She answered each question. Ryan placed the Senate card on the table, but kept one hand over it. "Step away from the case." Angela did not move. "Am I being detained?" "You are interfering with a security screening." "I have complied with the screening and provided every requested document." "Your attitude is becoming a concern." The sentence caused Eleanor to raise her telephone and begin recording. Angela lowered her voice rather than raising it. "My attitude is not an offense. State the specific basis for restricting my movement." Ryan signaled for Jenna to move Angela away from the public line. Miguel looked down at his monitor, where the federal seal verification request was already processing. A message appeared in green letters: "Authorized container. Official travel record confirmed." He turned the screen toward Ryan. "The case is verified." Ryan looked at the confirmation, then at Angela. The license matched. The boarding pass matched. The Senate identification matched. The federal seal matched. Instead of ending the encounter, he changed the reason. "The documents may be valid," he said, "but I still need to determine whether you are authorized to carry them." Angela looked toward Jenna's body camera. "Then call the number you have refused to call for the last 4 minutes." At 7:06 a.m., Ryan Mercer moved Senator Angela Whitfield away from the main screening line and toward a secondary inspection area bordered by glass partitions. The terminal continued flowing around them, but the space beside the checkpoint had become its own stage. Passengers slowed. Employees glanced over. Eleanor Price kept her telephone raised from a respectful distance, recording the senator's calm posture and the officer's growing impatience. Angela's driver's license, boarding pass, Senate identification, and official travel authorization remained on the inspection table behind Ryan. Every document had matched. The protected case had been verified. The security seal had been confirmed. Still, Ryan spoke as though the facts had only made the situation more suspicious. "Place your hands where I can see them," he said. Angela held them at her sides. "They have been visible throughout this encounter." "You are being argumentative." "I am asking for the legal basis of this detention." Jenna Cole stood several feet away, watching the green verification message remain on Miguel Alvarez's monitor. "Ryan," she said, "the Transportation Security Administration system confirms the container and the travel record. We should contact the Senate Verification Office now." Ryan did not look at her. "I need to establish whether she is the person authorized to use those credentials." Angela turned slightly toward Jenna. "The photograph matches me. The boarding pass matches the identification. The official travel record matches the case." Ryan stepped between them. "I'm not discussing this with both of you." Miguel approached with a printed verification receipt. "This includes the official contact number and authorization code. The checkpoint requirement has been satisfied." Ryan took the paper, glanced at it, and folded it once without calling the number. "Airport police still have concerns." "What concerns?" Angela asked. "Your refusal to cooperate." "I complied with screening, provided identification, and requested verification." "Which instruction did I refuse?" Ryan paused. The body cameras recorded the silence. Then he changed direction. "You refused to open the case." "Because the verified security protocol prohibits opening it in a public area." Miguel nodded. "She is correct." Ryan looked toward him with visible irritation. "Step back, Supervisor." Miguel did not move. "You are extending a cleared screening without an identified threat." The atmosphere changed. What had begun as a technical alert was now a dispute over whether Ryan would accept information that contradicted his first assumption. Angela's telephone began vibrating inside her shoulder bag. The screen displayed Capitol Police Protective Operations. She reached toward it slowly. Ryan raised one hand. "Do not answer that." Angela stopped. "That is an official security call. You can answer after we finish." Jenna looked at the screen. "Ryan, We should let her take it. No, the telephone stopped, then began ringing again seconds later. Each unanswered call widened the gap between Angela's approved travel route and the security team monitoring her. She looked directly at Ryan. You are preventing me from responding to the office responsible for verifying my identity. I am controlling the scene. No, Angela said. You are preventing the scene from being resolved. Eleanor's recording captured the sentence clearly. Ryan signaled toward the private inspection room. Move inside. Angela did not resist, but she did not move immediately. Am I under arrest? You are being detained pending investigation. Investigation of what? Possible misuse of federal credentials and interference with airport security. Miguel held up the verification receipt. The credentials have been confirmed. Ryan ignored him. Jenna looked toward the document case, where the amber light had begun blinking faster. The approved screening zone no longer contained it. The case had been moved. The verification process had been interrupted. The senator's security calls had gone unanswered. At 7:10 a.m., Angela stepped toward the private room while Ryan followed with the case in his hand. Behind them, the small light changed from amber to red. The system had given him several chances to stop. He carried the warning with him anyway. At 7:13 a.m., the protected document case issued a sharp electronic tone inside the private inspection area, and a red warning symbol appeared beside the lock. Ryan Mercer set the case on a metal table and stared at it. What did you activate? He asked. Senator Angela Whitfield remained near the glass wall with her hands visible. I activated nothing. You moved the case outside its approved screening zone after being told not to. Jenna Cole checked the display and read the message aloud. Security perimeter breach. Remote notification sent. Ryan looked toward Miguel Alvarez. Can you cancel it? Miguel shook his head. Only the issuing federal office can clear that alert. Angela's telephone began vibrating again inside her shoulder bag. The screen displayed United States Capitol Police. Ryan stepped between her and the bag. Do not answer. Angela's expression hardened. That office is now responding to the alert you triggered. I said wait. You are preventing the authorized custodian from resolving a federal security event. Jenna turned toward Ryan. Let her take the call. He ignored her and reached for his radio. Airport Command. I have a subject under detention with a federal container that has activated an alarm. Angela looked directly at his body camera. Please record that the container was verified before Officer Mercer removed it from the approved area. Miguel answered immediately. That is correct. The radio responded with questions Ryan had not prepared for. Was the seal authenticated? Yes. Miguel said before Ryan could answer. Was the traveler's identity verified? Jenna looked at Angela's documents. The license, ticket, Senate identification, and travel record all match. Ryan's voice tightened. There are still concerns about authorization. Angela's telephone stopped ringing. A message appeared on the screen. Protective detail unable to confirm status. Escalation initiated. Jenna read it and looked at Ryan. This is getting worse because we are blocking verification. Ryan stared through the glass at the terminal. More officers had begun gathering near the checkpoint. Travelers were being redirected around the area. He had wanted control. Now every decision was expanding beyond him. What exactly is inside the case? He asked Angela. Protected committee materials related to transportation security. Then open it. Not here. If there is no threat, opening it should not be a problem. Angela's voice remained measured. Opening it in an unsecured airport room would create the security violation you claim to be investigating. Miguel nodded. The case can only be accessed in an approved facility. Ryan pressed his lips together. The facts kept closing every path he tried to create. Then Jenna's radio crackled. All units, be advised. United States Capitol Police report Senator Angela Whitfield unaccounted for during authorized travel. Last confirmed location is Terminal C. Jenna looked at Angela, then at Ryan. They are looking for her. Ryan glanced at the Senate identification he had placed beside the case. That does not prove she is the senator. Miguel turned the verification receipt toward him and pointed to the authenticated photograph. It already did. The private room fell quiet. Angela studied Ryan with a mixture of disbelief and restraint. You have the identification, the travel record, the confirmed seal, and now a direct alert from the agency protecting me. What additional fact are you waiting for? Ryan did not answer. Outside the glass, Eleanor Price continued recording as security staff began closing access lanes. At 7:15 a.m., Miguel's terminal received a direct confirmation from the office of the Senate Sergeant-at-Arms. He read it twice before speaking. Identity confirmed. Angela Whitfield is a sitting United States Senator and the authorized custodian of the case. Jenna exhaled slowly. Ryan remained still. Then he said, "Being a senator does not exempt her from airport security." Angela looked at him. "Correct. It also does not exempt you from following procedure." At that moment, the overhead announcement stopped mid-sentence. Security doors began lowering across Terminal C, and a new order entered every radio at the checkpoint. At 7:18 a.m., the command entered every security radio in Terminal C. Seal the terminal. Hold all departures and preserve the current scene. Heavy access doors began closing across the concourse while Transportation Security Administration officers redirected passengers away from the checkpoint. Boarding screens continued displaying departure times, but movement beneath them stopped. Travelers looked toward the private inspection area, searching for an explanation. Ryan Mercer stepped closer to his radio. "Command, what is the reason for the shutdown?" A new voice answered. "Protected federal materials have triggered a security alert, and a United States senator was reported missing from her approved travel route. No one moves the container until the response team arrives." Ryan looked at Angela Whitfield, then at the red light blinking on the document case. Angela remained still. "You were warned before you moved it," she said. "I was conducting an investigation," Ryan replied. "You were refusing verification." Jenna Cole stood beside the glass partition, her body camera capturing both of them. "Ryan, the seal was authenticated. Her identity was confirmed. We need to end the detention." He looked toward Miguel Alvarez. "Why did the system allow the case through if it was this sensitive?" Miguel held up the printed authorization. "It did allow it through. The alert began after you removed it from the approved zone and blocked contact with the authorized security office." The distinction landed heavily. The screening process had worked. Ryan had interrupted it. Outside the room, Department of Homeland Security personnel entered from the east corridor, while Capitol Police officers approached from the opposite direction. Special Agent Noah Blake reached the inspection area first. He displayed his credentials to Miguel, then looked through the glass at Angela. "Senator Whitfield, are you safe?" "I am safe," Angela answered. "The case has not been opened." Blake turned toward Ryan. "Who prevented her from answering our calls?" Ryan hesitated. Jenna spoke clearly. "Officer Mercer did." "Who moved the protected case after the Transportation Security Administration supervisor warned against it?" Jenna looked at Ryan again. "Officer Mercer." Ryan's expression tightened. "My partner is describing this without context." Angela finally stepped closer to the table. "The context is recorded. My license matched. My ticket matched. My Senate identification matched. The travel office confirmed the itinerary. The federal seal was authenticated. You continued because each fact contradicted the conclusion you had already chosen." Blake examined the case without touching it. A Homeland Security technician scanned the external seal and confirmed that it remained intact. The terminal shutdown had not been caused by a hidden threat inside the container. It had been caused by the broken chain of custody created when Ryan removed it and separated Angela from the authorized verification process. A command officer arrived and asked Ryan 3 questions. "Why did you refuse the official verification number? Why did you prevent the senator from answering Capitol Police? Why did you move the case after receiving a direct warning?" Ryan answered the first with suspicion, the second with scene control, and the third with officer safety. Each explanation sounded weaker than the one before it. Miguel's records showed the credentials had already cleared. Jenna's camera showed Angela had remained composed. Eleanor Price's telephone video showed Ryan dismissing every attempt to resolve the encounter. At 7:24 a.m., the command officer instructed Ryan to surrender his body camera for immediate review and removed him from checkpoint duty. Angela watched without satisfaction. "Do not treat this as serious because I am a senator," she said. "Treat it as serious because correct documents should not become suspicious when a black woman presents them." Beyond the glass, hundreds of passengers waited for the terminal to reopen. Ryan had believed he was protecting them from her. Now the entire airport was being protected from the consequences of his decisions. At 7:31 a.m., Terminal C remained sealed while security teams rebuilt the chain of custody around the protected case. Special Agent Noah Blake escorted Senator Angela Whitfield into a secure conference room adjacent to the checkpoint, where a Homeland Security technician verified the electronic seal, reviewed the tracking log, and confirmed that the contents had not been accessed. Angela sat at the end of a narrow table with her navy jacket folded over the back of the chair. Her expression remained controlled, but the strain of the morning showed in the stillness of her hands. Outside the room, passengers waited beneath silent departure boards while airport staff explained delays without revealing details. Inside, every minute of the encounter was being collected. The Transportation Security Administration system showed that the case had been authorized at 7:02 a.m. Miguel Alvarez's report documented that he had instructed Ryan Mercer not to move it. Jenna Cole's body camera recorded Angela providing 4 matching forms of identification. Eleanor Price's telephone video captured Ryan refusing the official verification number and preventing Angela from answering Capitol Police. The case itself recorded the exact moment it left the approved screening zone. The evidence did not need interpretation. It formed a timeline. At 7:38 a.m., Airport Police Chief Daniel Foster arrived and entered the secondary review room where Ryan had been asked to wait. Ryan began explaining before the chief sat down. "I believe the credentials could be fraudulent," he said. The passenger was unusually defensive, and the container created a security concern. Foster placed the printed verification receipt on the table. "This was issued before you moved the case." Ryan looked at it. "I still had concerns." "Based on what fact?" Ryan hesitated. "Her behavior." Foster opened the preliminary body camera transcript. "She asked you to verify the documents, allowed screening, and complied with every instruction that did not violate the federal protocol." Which part was threatening? Ryan had no answer. In the secure conference room, Jenna gave a recorded statement. She admitted that she had recognized the credentials appeared valid and that Miguel had confirmed the seal. She also admitted she had waited too long to challenge Ryan directly. "I kept thinking he would correct himself after the next confirmation," she said. Then the confirmations kept coming, and he kept changing the reason. Angela listened without interrupting. When Jenna finished, Blake asked whether Angela wished to make an immediate complaint. "Yes," she said, "but the complaint should not be limited to one officer." Blake looked up. Angela continued. "The system gave him repeated opportunities to stop. His partner saw the problem. The supervisor identified the correct protocol. The verification office was available. Yet no one with authority ended the detention until the terminal was already closing. At 7:46 a.m., the protected case was cleared and returned to Angela. The terminal shutdown was lifted in stages. Security doors rose. Boarding announcements resumed. Travelers began moving again, though the delay remained visible in the long lines and anxious faces. Ryan was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Jenna was removed from checkpoint duty while her actions were reviewed. Miguel returned to the screening station, where the next passenger handed him a passport and waited. Before Angela left the secure room, Chief Foster approached her. "Senator, I apologize for what happened." Angela looked through the glass toward the checkpoint where Ryan had first questioned whether the case belonged to her. "An apology is the beginning," she said. "The real test is whether the next black woman presenting valid documents is believed before the airport has to close to prove she was telling the truth." Over the next 48 hours, the Airport Authority, the Transportation Security Administration, the United States Capitol Police, and the Department of Homeland Security began comparing every available record. The body camera footage showed Ryan Mercer dismissing documents that had already been authenticated. The checkpoint system confirmed that the protected case was approved before he moved it. The travel office logs proved that Senator Angela Whitfield had followed the exact route assigned to her. The unanswered calls from Capitol Police matched the minutes when Ryan prevented her from reaching her telephone. Each source told the same story, and none supported the language in Ryan's report. He described Angela as hostile. The recordings showed restraint. He described her as evasive. The documents showed full identification. He claimed the case had created an unexplained threat. The security log showed that his own decision had triggered the alert. Airport Police Chief Daniel Foster reviewed the footage in a conference room with legal counsel and internal investigators. Ryan sat across from them. no longer wearing his duty equipment. "Why did you refuse the official verification number?" Foster asked. Ryan looked down at the printed transcript. "I believe the credentials might be part of a coordinated deception." "What evidence supported that belief?" Her confidence seemed rehearsed. The room became still. Foster leaned back. "Confidence is not evidence." Ryan shifted in his chair. "She kept questioning my authority. She asked you to follow the published procedure." Ryan tried another explanation. "I was protecting the terminal." Foster placed the case tracking report in front of him. "The terminal closed because you interrupted the authorized process." In a separate interview, Jenna Cole gave investigators a complete statement. She admitted that she had recognized the verification results early and had failed to act quickly enough. "I thought supporting my partner meant giving him time to correct himself," she said. "I understand now that waiting allowed the harm to continue." Her honesty did not remove responsibility, but it separated her choices from Ryan's refusal to acknowledge facts. Miguel Alvarez submitted a detailed account of every warning he had given. Eleanor Price provided the full recording from her telephone, including the moment Ryan described Angela's lawful questions as a behavioral concern. The investigation then expanded beyond the airport. 3 earlier complaints involving Ryan were reopened. In each case, a black traveler had presented valid documentation, only to face prolonged questioning after the original concern had been resolved. The reports used familiar words: defensive, suspicious, uncooperative. None had received meaningful review. Angela declined requests for television interviews while the investigation remained open. Instead, she submitted a written proposal to the Airport Authority and the Senate Homeland Security Committee. Federal credentials would require immediate verification through official channels. Officers could not use demeanor alone to prolong detention after documents had been confirmed. Travelers could not be prevented from answering calls from authorized security personnel without a documented safety reason. Protected containers would remain inside designated zones unless a qualified supervisor approved movement. The proposal also required independent review whenever a detention continued after all identity records matched. Some officials called the reforms excessive. Angela responded with one sentence: "A procedure is only excessive to people who never expect to need its protection." 2 weeks after the shutdown, Ryan was formally suspended pending a final administrative hearing. Jenna remained off checkpoint duty and entered remedial training. Chief Foster issued a public statement acknowledging that the failure involved more than one officer's judgment. It involved a culture that had allowed suspicion to survive after evidence should have ended it. The terminal had reopened within an hour. The investigation made clear that the deeper closure would take much longer. 3 months after the administrative hearing, Airport Police Chief Daniel Foster signed the final decision. Ryan Mercer had ignored verified credentials, obstructed official communication, removed a protected federal container from its authorized area, and submitted a report that misrepresented the encounter. His employment was terminated. The decision did not rest on Senator Angela Whitfield's office. It rested on the body cameras, the checkpoint records, the travel logs, the case tracking data, and the words Ryan had spoken when he believed no one would challenge his judgment. Jenna Cole received formal discipline for failing to intervene soon enough, but her cooperation changed the course of her review. She completed retraining, returned under supervision, and later addressed new airport officers about the moment she learned that loyalty to procedure mattered more than loyalty to a partner's pride. Miguel Alvarez was commended for documenting each warning and preserving the correct screening record. Eleanor Price declined public attention and said she had recorded the encounter because silence would have made her part of it. The reforms Angela proposed were adopted across the airport. Federal credentials had to be checked through approved channels without unnecessary delay. Protected cases could not be removed from designated zones without qualified authorization. Officers were forbidden from using tone, confidence, or lawful questions as the sole basis for extending a detention. Any stop that continued after identity verification required immediate supervisory review. Earlier complaints involving Ryan were reopened, and the travelers who had once been described as difficult were finally invited to tell their stories without being treated as suspects in their own mistreatment. Months later, Angela returned to Terminal C for another morning flight. The concourse looked unchanged. Coffee shops opened beneath bright signs. Suitcases rolled across polished floors. Boarding calls echoed above families, flight crews, and business travelers. Yet Angela felt the memory of the lowered doors before she reached the checkpoint. She wore the same Navy suit and carried another secured document case, though this time the case contained materials for a public hearing rather than a closed briefing. A newly trained screening officer greeted her, reviewed the travel notation, and contacted the official verification office. The process took less than a minute. He checked the seal, matched the identification, and returned every document. "Thank you, Senator," he said. "You are cleared." Angela placed the card back into her bag. That is how the law is supposed to work. Nearby, a young black mother stood with 2 children and a stroller while another officer helped her organize the screening trays without suspicion or impatience. Angela watched for a moment, not because a single courteous interaction could prove the system had changed, but because change often began with ordinary moments handled correctly. She continued toward her gate as sunlight spread across the terminal windows. No alarms sounded. No doors lowered. No one demanded that she become smaller so another person could feel powerful. The airport had reopened within an hour that morning, but the questions it exposed remained much longer. Who was believed before verification? Whose confidence was called threatening? Whose documents became doubtful simply because of the hands presenting them? Ryan had believed procedure gave him authority. In the end, procedure became the record that removed it. The terminal returned to normal quickly. Justice took longer, but it arrived carrying every fact he had tried to ignore.